What if spending $1 trillion became your biggest nightmare? Imagine waking up with a jaw-dropping $1 trillion in your account. But there's a catch. You've got just 24 hours to spend every single cent, or it all vanishes. Think it's a dream come true? Think again. Today, we're diving into the mind-melting challenge of burning through unimaginable wealth.
Kind of founder of the Modern Post, a guy named Eugene Meyer, whose words are still inscribed in the lobby as you walk in.
Let's get one thing straight. $1 trillion isn't just a lot. It's a number so massive, it practically breaks your brain. It's 1 million. That's a 1 followed by 12 zeros. And if you tried to spend $1 million every second, non-stop, around the clock, it would still take 11.5 days to burn through the full trillion. Ty feels the weight of it. Compare it to someone like Jeff Bezos, the man who owns space rockets and a mega-yacht the size of a football field. His net worth sits around $200 billion, just 1/5 of the amount we're dealing with here. Let's throw in another visual. If you stacked $1 trillion in $100 bills, the pile would stretch over 630 miles high, more than twice the altitude of the International Space Station. So yeah, $1 trillion is way past rich. It's build your own country, run it, and launch it into space kind of rich. But how fast can you burn through that kind of money? Let's go on the wildest shopping spree the world has ever seen. All right, let's start big. Cars, jets, yachts, the flashy stuff we all dream about. First stop, supercars. Imagine walking into every Lamborghini, Ferrari, and McLaren dealership on the planet and saying, "I'll take all of them." Each dealership costs roughly $12 million, so let's say you buy 100 of them. That's $1.2 billion gone. But guess what? That's not even 1/10 of 1% of your trillion. Okay, let's level up. Yachts. Not just any yachts, mega-yachts. The kind with helicopter pads, dance floors, and crew quarters bigger than most apartments. Buy 100 of them at $400 million each. And that's $40 billion gone. Still barely scratching the surface. Now toss in 365 private jets. One for every day of the year. That's roughly $25 billion, assuming $70 million per jet. Still got hundreds of billions left. No problem. Let's go for an experience. How about booking Beyoncé, Drake, Taylor Swift, and Snoop Dogg for private concerts? On Mars. Well, okay, not Mars, but how about space? SpaceX tickets to orbit. That's $55 million per person. You could send the entire Coachella lineup to space and still have more cash than you know what to do with. Bottom line? Even if you go full Hollywood billionaire mod, supercars, yachts, jets, and intergalactic concerts, you're still nowhere near spending it all. And that's when you realize, this challenge is just getting started. Now, let's switch gears and talk about real estate. Because what's richer than owning land and buildings? Imagine trying to buy every single vacant property in New York City. There are about 33,210 empty units available. And the total value? A staggering $1.3 trillion. Sounds like the perfect way to spend it all, right? Well, not so fast. Here's the catch. Most of those units aren't actually for sale. Real estate is notoriously tricky. Owners don't just hand over keys for cash, especially when you're talking about that kind of money. So even if you had $1 trillion, you couldn't just snap up all those apartments overnight. The logistics alone would be a nightmare. Okay, so what if you build something incredible instead? How about creating your very own Dubai-style artificial island? A massive man-made playground in the middle of the ocean. That would set you back about $20 billion. Still a drop in the bucket compared to your trillion, and you'd still have money left to buy some of the world's most iconic buildings. Like the Burj Khalifa, the tallest skyscraper on Earth. Now this one's wild. If you stacked up $1 bills, the Burj Khalifa's height would be worth about $7.58 million, which is tiny compared to your total fortune. Feeling adventurous? What about buying a country? Greenland's massive mineral reserves alone are worth roughly $200 billion. But here's the reality check. It's not for sale. Countries aren't commodities, and no amount of money guarantees you can just buy one. So real estate and mega projects? Great for spending billions, but even they don't come close to draining $1 trillion overnight. Alright, time to flex some serious power. What if you decided to spend your $1 trillion on something way more tactical? First up, building a private army. You could hire about 57,000 mercenaries, enough to rival small national forces. Add in F-35 jets, each priced around $80 million, and maybe a couple of aircraft carriers which come in at roughly $50 billion apiece. That's some serious firepower to command. Just assembling this private military might cost you hundreds of billions. But here's the thing. Power isn't just about guns and ships. Money can also try to influence politics. Suppose you tried to buy every U.S. senator and representative. Studies estimate that convincing every member of Congress could cost around $7.2 billion, a tiny fraction of your $1 trillion stash. Still, cash can't buy absolute control. Politicians aren't puppets on a string. There are limits to how much money can sway decisions. Public opinion, laws, and a complex web of checks and balances mean your political power play would face major hurdles. So even if you spent billions on military muscle and politicians, your $1 trillion challenge remains. How do you burn through it all in just 24 hours? Now let's talk about media power. Because if you're rolling in trillions, owning the news can seem like the ultimate power move. Imagine buying every major media outlet you can think of. The New York Times, Fox News, The Washington Post, all of them under your control. Running a global advertising campaign that floods every screen and device on Earth. That could easily cost $1 trillion per year. So, technically, you could blow your entire fortune just on media ownership and non-stop worldwide ads for a full year. Sounds like a win for controlling public opinion, right? Well, here's the twist. Money doesn't always buy perception. Even billionaire Elon Musk's massive political campaigns faced public pushback and mixed results. No matter how much you spend, you can't force people to think a certain way. Public opinion is messy, unpredictable, and fiercely independent. So while media control and propaganda are powerful tools, they're not a guaranteed way to spend your trillion quickly or effectively, especially within a 24-hour spending challenge. What if you flipped the script and decided to spend your trillion on fixing the world's biggest problems? Let's break down some eye-opening numbers. First up, medical debt. Erasing all U.S. medical debt would cost about $2.2 billion. Pocket change for $1 trillion wallet. Charities have done this before, wiping out medical bills for millions of people. Next, world hunger. The United Nations estimates it would take around $40 billion per year to end global hunger by 2030. Even if you dropped $40 billion in one day, that's still just a fraction of your trillion, and the problem would require ongoing efforts. What about student loans? U.S. student debt totals roughly $1.7 trillion. You could technically pay it off all at once, but here's the catch. Universities might just raise tuition to fill the gap, making it a never-ending cycle. And then there's the U.S. national debt, a staggering $36 trillion. Donating a huge $220 billion would barely make a dent, showing just how massive these economic challenges really are. Philanthropy is powerful, but systemic issues aren't solved overnight, especially when you only have 24 hours to spend. So here's the harsh reality. Most assets simply can't be bought instantly, no matter how much cash you flash. Whether it's companies, real estate, or big infrastructure projects, these things require time, legal processes, and complex negotiations. Even with a bottomless wallet, spending $1 trillion in just 24 hours is almost impossible. Banks have limits on how much you can transfer in a day. Sellers need time to agree and finalize deals. Logistics becomes a massive bottleneck. You can't just snap your fingers and own a skyscraper or a fleet of jets overnight. Liquidity, the ability to quickly convert assets into cash or buy things instantly, is the ultimate barrier. Much of that trillion is tied up in investments or physical assets that aren't liquid. So, despite the jaw-dropping sum, time is the real limitation. In the end, the trillion-dollar challenge shows us that money, as powerful as it is, still faces real-world limits. You can't simply burn through that kind of cash like it's monopoly money, at least not in a day. Spending $1 trillion in a day is nearly impossible, not because of a lack of things to buy, but because of the sheer scale, logistics, and real-world restrictions. This exercise shines a light on how vast wealth inequality really is. $1 trillion could solve global crises, yet no one can realistically spend it all. Money has its limits. If you enjoyed this mind-blowing deep dive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. What would you spend $1 trillion on? Let me know in the comments below.